Thank you so much. Can you hear me? Yeah. I don't know if my mic's on properly. Oh, that's better. Thank you so much. Right, so we've got 20 minutes to unpack some of the findings of the research that was commissioned by Propeller Group and the Women in Programmatic Network. I'm going to be talking lots of stats. We're going to be going through this at quick fire pace. My name is Ellie Edwards-Scott. I'm co-founder of the Advisory Collective. I've got 2 children, 15, nearly 16-year-old son and a 12-year-old daughter. I'm asked my panel to introduce themselves. Mikhail?
Hi, I'm Michal Niesensen. I'm the Director of Customer Marketing at GeoEdge, and I have 3 children, 2 boys and a girl.
Can't hear you.
You can't hear me?
Try again.
Testing?
Yes, that's better.
So,
Go on.
hi, I'm Michal Niesensen. I'm the Director of Customer Marketing at GeoEdge, and I'm a mother of 3, 2 boys and a girl, so 13, 10, and 5.
Wow.
Hi, my name's Rob Garber. Apologies, I'm a little bit loud. So I need this. I am the Managing Director of Gum Gum in the UK, and I have 1 daughter. Her name is Alexa, and we called her Alexa 2 months. I can see the face. Oh, you can't hear. It wasn't because of my daughter's name.
He's saying, it's a mic.
Can you hear me now? That's much better. So yeah, we called her Alexa 2 months after the device was released. So we did that.
I'm Louise Watson, Practice Director at Propeller Group and Head of PR for the Women in Programmatic Network. And I have 1 son, Miles, who's 2.
Thank you. Right, so first question. So one of the huge benefits, I think, of the last couple of years has been the acceptance of a more flexible working environment. Digging into the numbers, 97% of those surveyed felt that working flexibly or core hours is one of the most important features for a successful work-life balance as a parent. Some businesses now, though, are publicly enforcing, mandated office days or back to the office. So what impact do you think this will have on parents, and how can companies better mitigate this? I'm going to come to you first, Rob, both as a parent and also as an MD of a business.
I'll say a bold statement first. I don't think anyone should ever be forced into an office. And that's the policy that Gum Gum is going to be doing moving forward. I think as individuals, we are very easy to go into normal kind of patterns. We all went on the rat run. We all kind of unconsciously went on that tube journey every single day. And it took 3 months of lockdown, which is the psyche of an individual, to break a pattern that you do. And I think we all then realised that this isn't working for most people. So in terms of Gum Gum as a company, next year, and actually at the moment we do not entice or force anyone into the office. It's up to them if they want to. Next year we're removing the word office from all of our businesses globally, and we're going to be creating something called a farmhouse. A farmhouse is where we're going to be growing fruit and vegetables in the office. It's a place to collaborate. I think anyone who thinks that they can force people into a box, a 4-walled box, where people log into a laptop and put their headphones on, those things are gone in the past. So I think the companies who force individuals in are going to start slowly losing talent, and they're going to have to change very quickly.
That's a really bold approach, I think, in terms of what you're doing, and the fact that it's a global approach as well. So it'll be interesting to see how that unfolds. I'm going to come to you next, Mikhail, if I may, because I'd like to talk about your working experience, and obviously you're not based in the UK. So talk to me about what flexible working is like for you.
So in our Tel Aviv office, we come to the office 3 days, which honestly, force is a bad word, but I think it's essential to come and meet your co-workers. And especially for me, I love coming to the office because I really get to meet people, and something that may take a few Zoom calls takes 5 minutes by the coffee machine when you're there in person. So I do see value in coming to the office. Forcing, I think the world today has changed. You don't force anyone to do anything, but I think it is something that should be encouraged to come and meet so that those spillovers and the synergy happens.
I think that's a really good point, and I think we can't take away from the fact that collaboration coming together is really important. Louise, what are your views on this?
Yeah, so I think that we've got to be quite careful when we are bringing in these new rules and just make sure that we aren't completely alienating parents that have had to adapt their kind of day-to-day routine so dramatically over the last few years as a result of COVID. So if you if you are going to be bringing days back in the office and you are going to be looking at whatever works for your business directly, actually I think it's just being mindful of the impact that is going to have on different people within your business, and making sure that you are having conversations with them about what flexibility can be offered, but also kind of addressing that impact head on.
Definitely. And I think obviously this panel is about working parents, and that implies maybe a certain stage of life, but I think we've also got to be mindful of younger people coming into the industry and how important, being in a collaborative working environment is, whether it's a hub, farmhouse, whatever that is. I'm going to come on to another stat now. So this is about people parents who've considered leaving the industry to get a better work-life balance, and 46% of those surveyed have considered it. What do you think of this, and have you had this thought? And I'm going to come to you, Louise, first, because obviously we've talked about this. So just give the audience some insight into your experience.
I think coming back to the office after maternity leave is obviously hugely daunting, and I think you're coming back trying to adjust into a job that probably feels very different from before you had children. I think the main thing that I found was actually having a really open and honest conversation with Propeller about my situation and what flexibility needed to look like for me. Actually has meant that I have felt that I've been able to continue to grow, and that's been a really positive thing. But obviously I'm very aware that there are a lot of women who either don't feel like they've got support from more senior people, or maybe flexibility is not there. And same with dads as well. It does become a bit of a taboo subject for dads coming back into work and maybe asking for flexibility when it's not something that's been asked for as regularly.
What's been your experience, Rob, both as a parent but also as an employer? Have you had to have those conversations with some of your staff?
Have I ever personally thought about work-life? But yes.
Have you ever thought about jacking it all in?
Give me a boat in the Maldives and the same salary, I will move. I think anyone would everyone thinks about that, and I think let's be honest to ourselves, not many people in our industry had a vocation to come into our industry. I think if you're a lawyer, if you're in the hospital industry, you have a vocation. When a pandemic hits, that's when a lot of people readdress and kind of make a decision about what they want to do. And I think a lot of junior management has made that shift because it wasn't that vocation, first of all. I think at Gum Gum specifically, I'll say about my team and then me personally, I say my team, I think we all need to be treated as individuals. Everyone is going through a different challenge that no one has a true awareness of. So I think we need to have understanding of each individual person. I personally, 3 companies ago, when we had my daughter Alexa, my wife unfortunately had E. coli, and she was in hospital for 2 weeks, and that was my 2 weeks paternity leave. The company didn't care about that, and I was still in on the kind of 2 weeks and 1 day. So I think it is evolving. I think COVID and the lockdown has really helped it, but I think it's individual conversations that are not happening enough at certain companies.
What's been your experience, Mikhail?
I think that the COVID actually caused shifts in how people see their lives in general. So I don't think it's something that's just unique to our industry. I think that lawyers and everyone is leaving their profession or shifting, even in the medical field. But relating to what Rob said, I think what it did shift is the fact that we need to see employees more as humans and to address their needs. COVID brought everyone into each other's homes through Zoom and getting to know their families and it's silly, but the distance helped us to learn more about one another. And I think that the flexibility and the accommodation that it brought is actually something that some people are leaving now, but this may attract more to come to the tech industry in general.
On that point, so a stat which actually I found quite, not alarming, but I was quite surprised at it, was that when it comes to working arrangements, only 22% of people had actual formal arrangements for flexible working. Actually, a lot of the respondents felt that maybe they had informal arrangements with a manager or worked something out to their circumstance, which surprised me in a way. Rob, from an employer perspective, I keep coming to you for this, but what do companies need to do? Should they be having a kind of mandated flexible policy, or do you think it's actually better to have that kind of one-to-one individual conversation and arrangement?
I think this is one of the biggest challenges that you'll have at many executive or boardrooms, deciding what is the best thing for the employees and what is the best thing for the organisation. And the more the pendulum swings to what is the best for the organisation, the more you'll start losing staff and kind of having a struggle there. So I think for me, we have the official line that we'd like people to come in on a Wednesday and Thursday if they can, but there is no mandate whatsoever. I think culture is the most important thing at a company, to evoke the open conversation that people need, unique kind of, not treatment, but understanding. And I think culture doesn't come from an HR people ops team. I think a lot of time a people ops team create a culture and their CEO or founder or someone does something completely different. I think it's what the person at the top of the organisation portrays that everyone else aligns to and understands. So GumGum's a very open company. We've got many people going through many different difficult situations and they're all treated individually. No one needs to ask for time off, they just need to say that they do need time off. Everyone has respect. I think that's the culture that everyone wants to work in and everyone then fosters within. But it is a very challenging time between that kind of businesses paying for rent and people want to have that flexibility that they deserve. So
Definitely.
It is tough.
Yeah, you can have a flock of people coming to work for GumGum now.
There are open roles, but this is not a pitch.
A lot of applications. It sounds like a great place to work. Louise, what's been your experience at Propeller Group?
Yeah, so I think that there obviously has to be a policy line somewhere. So you tend to have a kind of flexible working policy in place or a few lines on it. But I think the most important thing is actually being able to have a conversation about what works for you personally as well as for the business.
Can you talk about your experience and how your working arrangement is?
Yeah, so when I came back to Propeller, I had a very open conversation with our managing director, Kieran, about what flexible working maybe needed to look like for me. And I know other mums at Propeller have had similar experiences coming back and being able to look at kind of individual situations and what's going to work for us. And that's hugely important. I think everybody's situation is different, whether you're a single parent or your partner works at home, or maybe they don't have the flexibility of working at home. And that was one of the challenges I had, as my husband doesn't have the ability to work from home. So therefore the flexibility needed to be a little bit more on my side. But I think being able to have those conversations wherever you're employed is really important. And actually working with companies that are open to having those conversations is going to be really important moving forward.
Mikhail, what's your experience been?
So I think there's an oxymoron here because we're talking about formal guidelines and then about flexibility, and it's kind of hard to have a formal flexibility. But I think in the company I work for, people are encouraged to come to the office Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, but obviously if someone is going through something, there's a lot of accommodations. So I think it's that respect that you create between the employees and the employers, that when someone is being trusted, it's much easier for both parties to be flexible. So I think that's part of it.
Okay. So I think we kind of, if we can summarise that bit, I think, it's important to try and have that flexibility. We recognise, obviously, it's difficult for employers to do that, but where those individual conversations can be had, it's obviously better working environment and a better culturally, I think.
Just to add something there, I think one of the things that we mentioned in the research was about kind of that formal versus informal arrangement.
Definitely.
And I think the biggest thing in that is actually being in a situation where you can have those conversations. Yeah. And I think the sad thing is not all people are in that situation where they are able to have those conversations with their line managers or with their departments. So it's really important that there is that level of kind of flexibility built in as well, because if you can't have those conversations, there needs to be a way of kind of working around that and finding a way of working flexibly, or you are going to lose amazing talent.
Yeah, definitely.
Just to add on that, I think we're at the beginning of this journey as well. So we're all learning about the flexible way of working. I don't know how many years ago, but Google once put some apples and fruit in their kitchen and canteen. Everyone went crazy about it, and everyone thought, well, let's start offering this as well. Then realised it's kind of just a token gesture. So we're all learning. We're all going to make mistakes. We're all going to succeed. I think these conversations will help us learn what works, what doesn't work. Speaking to the talent and teams in your office will also help that. So I think we're all going to make mistakes. I think we're all going to learn. I think that's what's really important. but doing nothing is the biggest problem.
Definitely. And I think also, to your point, Rob, I think there's not a one-size-fits-all approach for a company, because depending on most different departments and those different job functions, you then need to look at that and what collaboration is needed. So it's not even just a company policy, it could be team and, departmental.
It requires constant agility and the ability to make changes on a fast-paced basis. I think that's everything we've learned about in the past 2 years, about all aspects, and especially when it comes to people management, because things are changing so fast. And we're out there right now fighting for the good talents, and you have to show this flexibility and to be able to adjust the way you address your employees and what they need on a regular basis. I think that's the key.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think to attract new talent in, and it's so interesting, I'm sitting looking at some new talent here from the DigiLearning crew, but to attract new talent into the industry as well, I think, whereas, in the past we would have put up with certain things, actually newcomers to the industry are saying, this is what I want, and if we don't get it, we'll go elsewhere. I am conscious of time, and I want to get a couple more questions out of the way. This is a controversial one, because I don't know I do know where I sit on this. I don't necessarily believe in this, but imposter syndrome. We've got to talk about imposter syndrome, right? So, again, stats from the survey showed that women were twice as likely, so 61%, to be affected by imposter syndrome versus, compared to men, 30%. Do you think this contributes to women leaving the industry or rethinking their position in the industry? First of all, do we believe in imposter syndrome, Mikhail?
That's what I was about to say. I don't like this term.
Nor do I.
I'm not sure I believe in imposter syndrome. I think people are insecure sometimes.
Yeah.
And I think that when someone is insecure, they don't need to have a tag of an imposter syndrome put on them. I think it's all about that support that we keep talking about. When someone is insecure about the way they do their job, what they're actually doing is reaching out for help. And then if they do not receive this help, they would want to leave the industry because they feel uncomfortable. But if you provide them with that support and understanding, there's no syndrome, no need to imposter. They just need encouragement and some mentorship to do what they do better, and so we all perform better as a team. I think that's the key here.
That's a really good point. Louise, I'm going to come to you. You've got slightly different opinions, so it's good.
No, I do think I also massively dislike the term. I do think there is a challenge, and there's something to be aware of when parents are coming back into work.
Yeah.
Actually, the challenges internally and mentally that come with kind of coming back into work and throwing yourself back into a role, especially in an industry that is so fast-paced. And I mean, from this month to next month, something new is going to be happening, and you can feel like you've lost all of your knowledge, or you're not really sure 100% what's going on. And that can be quite hard to come back from. So I think it is just a case of making sure that you've got like a re-onboarding process, that you are making sure that parents are really supported coming back into work, and that everything is kind of in place to make them feel like they are a part of the team.
Yeah, makes sense. Rob, what's your perspective on that?
I agree. I don't like buzzwords like imposter syndrome, mainly because if you fear something or feel something, you'll gravitate towards it and go, that's exactly what I feel. Good example is last night my daughter didn't sleep. I didn't sleep at all. I'm thinking, can I do this morning? But is it imposter syndrome or whatever it is? Why do women have more imposter syndrome from this research than men? I think it comes down to a lot of inequalities. I think it comes down to a lot of inequalities in terms of salary, because I think if you take in terms of coming back to work, the reason most men work and most women take that time off is normally down to salary. If the lady is making more money, then maybe it will happen the other way around. So I think a lot of this breeds down to inequalities of salary that then breeds future things such as imposter syndrome, because it's going to take 9 months.
And the inequalities in the workplace, and the opportunities that are given to women, and the onboarding process and coming back. There are so many different things that can lead to that.
I think just going back to it, I think all of us as kind of working parents, we have those days, exactly as you're saying, where there is a lack of sleep. There is a toddler maybe in the background who you've not been able to get childcare and you're trying to battle everything. Actually, those days, you do feel like that quite regularly, where you think, can I manage all of this? And I think that's where it's very different, like a momentary or day-by-day feeling versus a constant feeling.
Yeah. Definitely. Right, conscious of time, final words. What are you most optimistic about when it comes to the future world of work, Rob?
So the flexibility, definitely, but I think these conversations. I was here at MadFest last year. We didn't have this conversation. I'm in a lot of inequality groups, and I think the fact that we are having these open conversations means that we are educating ourselves. I'm not educated. I'm on these panels because I want to educate myself. I want to learn. I want to learn from different people, different backgrounds. So this is what inspires me. This is what gets me so excited that we're actually having these conversations, because it's not going to change overnight.
No.
It will be a seismic shift, but it doesn't happen unless we have these conversations.
That's a great thing to end on. Louise, what are you most optimistic about?
Yeah, so I think, again, kind of having these conversations now is brilliant, and what we're doing, hopefully, is we're all obviously bringing up our own children, hopefully in a way that they're going to be future leaders in this industry or a different industry. And I think them being brought up in an environment where we are talking very vocally about what the challenges are, that gives us the opportunity to change something, and hopefully by the time they're having their own families, that these conversations won't need to happen.
And Mikal?
I'm very optimistic. I think that the tech industry is a beacon of change, and I think it's a disruptive, non-traditional industry, and therefore the ability to accept and adapt things that maybe in finance or in the medical world are more difficult to accept are easier in this industry. I also think that because our industry reward you on your performance base and not necessarily based on how many years you've been doing it or on your gender, there's a lot of basis for change here, because if you're a parent and you need flexibility, if you're a woman, if you're younger, it's all okay as long as you're getting things done. And I think that together with the fact that people are a little more open-minded is a great hope for change and for a better future.
Thanks. And I think to round that up, I'd say for myself, it's kind of touching on what you were saying, Rob, in terms of having these conversations. I've been in the industry 20 plus years, and we didn't have these conversations, and then over the last few years we've been having these conversations. But actually, I'm looking around I'm starting to see change, because it's not just about this conversation, it's about actually real change, and companies wanting to embrace real change, wanting to embrace people from non-traditional backgrounds getting into the industry, wanting to look at older people and where they go in the industry. So I'm optimistic that we are actually walking the walk, not just talking the talk and walking the walk. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ellie.